Back to wrap up hour number one of the program. We appreciate you joining us. If there's ever a topic that I think will generate some conversation here for you to join us on 480-864-1060 or to join us over on the YouTube page, KDUS AM 1060, it is this one because this is somewhat of a hot button issue. We touched on it yesterday. There's a podcast that Rob Manfred, the commissioner of Major League Baseball, did a couple of weeks ago. Jason Stark over at The Athletic wrote a story yesterday about it, this rule proposal. It's not actually an official proposal yet. We haven't even crossed that line, but this idea that had been thrown out there for Major League Baseball to spice things up, to maybe energize their game a little bit, to get with the times, or at least put themselves in a position that is similar to the other sports, meaning the best players in Major League Baseball having the game in their hands when the game is on the line. It's the uniqueness of baseball that with the game on the line in the bottom of the ninth inning or wherever the highest leverage situation is, it might mean that Corbin Carroll or Ketel Marte aren't up, or Shohei Ohtani or Freddie Freeman or Aaron Judge or Juan Soto or Bobby Witt Jr. or you name a star in the game of baseball, there's a really good chance that they won't be up with the game on the line. We talked about yesterday the golden at-bat rule that had been floated out there by Rob Manfred. That is something that was creating buzz among the owners. And for those of you who maybe didn't catch the show yesterday or you haven't seen this rule idea, I will recap it for you, and then we'll get into what has been a lot of pushback that I've seen over the last 24 hours or so. The golden at-bat rule or theory, this is nothing new. It's just something that actually hearing it from the mouth of the commissioner kind of changed the conversation here. But the idea being that at one point during the game, the specifics not ironed out yet, at one point during the game, you can basically bat out of order. You can say, you know what? I don't want my backup shortstop who's in for defense, now that the game has become close, I don't want them taking that at bat. Instead, I want to hand it over to my power hitter. I want to hand it over to my best player here for this at bat in this moment of the game. So it would be a one-time bat out of order. You can send anybody up for an at bat. And there is strategy that comes with it. When do you use it? Who in your lineup do you use it for? Just, it's a unique, different way to potentially excite people about the game of baseball. Because look at any other sport. Look at the NFL. Look at the NBA. Look at the NHL. With the game on the line, the best players have the ball, puck in their hand with a chance to win. Now, there has been a lot of pushback to this. There has been a lot of stubbornness is the way that I would describe it. Because I consider myself one of the biggest baseball fans out there. It is my favorite sport. Love it. Part of loving it is I am embedded into everything that there is about baseball. And I very much understand that this sport in particular skews to an older demographic. It skews to a lot of people who are gatekeepers about the game, that like to keep a lot of the tradition about the game. It is almost somewhat of a religion in a lot of aspects. And I think the gatekeeping that occurs around the sport does it more harm than good. I think there's some of it that is good, but there's a lot of it that I think does harm to the growth of the game. I said yesterday that I'm a fan of this rule proposal. I would love to see it in action. I believe it is something that would entice some younger viewers to watch the game late in these moments when these types of things happen. And I do believe it adds a strategy element. And that is one of the criticisms of baseball at time when they change these rules is, you're getting rid of you're adding the DH, getting rid of the pitcher hitting. That's taking away strategy from the game. You're making it to where relievers have to throw to three batters. You're taking away the strategy of the game. I don't think that's been true at all. I think both of those use cases, we have seen strategy come back to the game in just different ways. This would add another layer of strategy. But some of the pushback that I've seen is calling this crazy, calling it a gimmick, calling it a carnival act. I've heard it. I've heard everything about this. Here is what I would say to all those people who think this is a gimmick, or it's a carnival act, or it's a joke, or it's not true to the integrity of the game of baseball. Let's talk about two different things. Point number one that I would use to push back is Rob Manfred isn't saying that this is going to be enacted. He is not saying that it is going into place for 2025. He's just floating it out there as an idea. And if the immediate pushback by everybody in the baseball community to every single thing that gets proposed that changes the game is to say that you're changing the game and we hate it, we hate you, we hate everything about this, you are never going to get the game into a place where it is sustainable for the future. Because let's face it, biggest baseball fan there is. Baseball has a problem. Baseball is staring down a major problem. Baseball is staring down a financial crisis. They've got regional TV networks that are being propped up by the league. The league is having to buy these or run these rights for teams. They don't have the national deals that the NBA or the NFL has. They don't have a salary cap that keeps things competitive for all the teams. They have problems. They have probably a handful of TV networks that make money and teams that make a lot of money from their TV deals. You got the two teams in New York. You got Boston. You have LA, maybe Chicago. That's about it. You got other teams, this market included. Major League Baseball is running the Arizona Diamondbacks TV network. That is revenue that the Diamondbacks cannot bring in to reinvest it into their team to maybe increase payroll and acquire players. You don't think that that's a problem that we are staring down? There is a CBA that is about to expire after the 2026 season. You don't think that there's an impending work stoppage? Remember how the last one went? We missed opening day. There were things that got impacted because of the last work stoppage. I think it's going to be worse next time around. So Major League Baseball is not in a good place right now. There's a lot of good things happening with the game. You had just had a Dodgers-Yankees World Series that, while it probably made most of us throw up in our mouths, it is still good for the growth of the game. The two biggest brands in the sport, both globally and here in the United States, playing on the world stage. It was a big deal. Baseball has to embrace some of this unique stuff. So pushback number one that I would have is stop being stubborn every single time something gets thrown out there as a change. Because let me tell you, the last time we did this, it was when we were instituting a pitch clock. And it was when we were instituting the rules to speed up the game. Guess what? That is one of the best things that they have done in a really long time. It is one of the best decisions that they have made because it has sped up the game to a place where even somebody like me, even somebody who loves the game, watches it every single day, on most days is watching two teams. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see on my hat the one team that I watch pretty regularly, and then I'm also watching the team here in town for the show because I care about this team as well. Got a lot of family who root for this team. I have become embedded into this community, so I watch and root for that team as well. Maybe not when they're playing the team that's on the hat, but nevertheless, that's good for the game. It's good that it was sped up. Watching a lot of baseball. I don't need baseball games taking 3.5, 4 hours. Baseball can be extremely strategic, extremely entertaining. It can be everything that it needs to be in 2 hours and 45 minutes. And we have seen that the time and length of games has gone down, which means there is more action, which is the thing that Major League Baseball was trying to do. That was a good change. Stop being so difficult when it comes to change. That's pushback number one to that crowd. Pushback number two that I would have. Other leagues make rule changes all the time. All the time. Does everybody remember the year? And I used this example yesterday, but I'm going to use it again today. Does everybody remember the year where the NFL, during actual meaningful football games in the regular season, allowed you to throw the red challenge flag for pass interference and allowed you to say, I don't think that was pass interference. Go look at it. Remember when we did that for an entire season? Remember when that was a rule that was in place? And then you know what happened at the end of that season? The NFL got feedback from the teams, got feedback obviously from fans, got feedback from the officials, took all that feedback, and you know what they decided to do? They got rid of that as a rule. That's going to be a footnote. I'm sure there's half of this audience that didn't even remember that that was a thing until I just told you about it. And then you said, oh yeah, that's right, they did do that. Just because something gets instituted doesn't mean it will stand the test of time. It does not mean that it is written in stone and has to be the law of the land forever. You can put something in place, evaluate how it works, decide on something, and then say, you know what? That didn't work out the way that it was supposed to. We're going to move on from it. And then also there's this idea of if you give all these guys these extra at-bats, what does it do to records? Guess what? And I know baseball is a extremely historic sport. And trust me, it's one of the things I love about it is that you're able to go back and look at all of this data and look at all of these numbers. But I'm here to tell you, the NFL has changed over time, and the NFL has records, passing records, that get obliterated on a regular basis. Obliterated. The numbers that we are seeing in 2024 compared to what we saw in the 80s, the 70s, the 60s in football, it's night and day. People could say, oh, but Chris, baseball, at the end of the day, it's been the same game. Let me let you in on a little secret, everybody. There was something called the dead ball era. There were times where starting pitchers were throwing like every day. The game changes. There are different eras of the sport. And with that era change comes different things. And numbers changing and records changing is a part of that. I hate to be this brass about it. Get over it. Records are there to be broken. Records are there to be altered. That's the way sports work. Records are not designed to always stand the test of time. Records are not there to be one person's record forever. Now, are there some that will? Yes. I don't think anyone's beating Joe DiMaggio's 56-game hitting streak. I don't think anyone is going to hit in a season as many times as Ted Williams did and have the batting record. There are records. Pete Rose's all-time hit record, I don't think it's going to be broken, and if it does, it's going to be a very, very, very far way away. Records are designed to be broken. And so for a sport that I love, and there are people in the sport that I know work in the sport, that love the sport, and are coming at this from a good place. But I'm here to tell you, you can't be so difficult about this. This isn't even something that Rob Manfred said, hey, we're going to try this in AA, or we're going to try this in AAA. He said it on a podcast, and I don't even want to call it an offhand comment because he clearly floated it for a reason, but it was a comment in a podcast. It was followed up by a story in The Athletic by Jason Stark, who did a great job covering it from both sides. If this is how we're going to react as a sport, and I say we as somebody who loves the sport, if this is the way we are going to react to any little rule change, and you might say it's a seismic rule change, but if this is how we're going to act to anything that baseball tries to do, to try to reinvent itself, to try to gain more eyeballs, if this is how difficult we're going to be, then we are going to do more damage to the sport than you think these rule changes are going to do to the sport. Because all the damage that you think you're going to do to the sport by instituting this golden at bat, by allowing these moments to happen, you are doing more damage by being this difficult and blocking every single rule proposal that gets put out there. Is this the best thing that I've heard of when it comes to rule proposals recently in Major League Baseball? No. Do I personally like it? I've grown more fond of it in the last 24 hours. I was fond of it yesterday. I said I kind of liked it. I'm growing more fond of it, and I would like to see it, even if it's just for a season. I would like to see it in action to see what it looks like. But there's no reason to not try something for a season. If it doesn't work, you just go back to the way things were. That's okay. It's okay to admit, hey, a rule change didn't work. The NFL changed their kickoff this year. I guarantee you the kickoff rule probably isn't going to look exactly the same next year as it did this year. The NFL changes rules constantly. You don't hear the gripe from everybody over that. So there's just so much pushback yesterday. A lot of people in baseball circles, baseball broadcasters, I heard it all across the board. At the end of the day, here is where I come down on this. Do I think this is the best proposal of all time? No. Do I think it is a proposal worth trying? I do. I think we should have more conversations like this. I think we should debate and discuss and go back and forth on all sorts of different rule proposals and rule ideas and ideas to change the game. That's how you make your game better. Some of them are going to be great. Some of them are going to stink. But having that conversation is what is good for the game. What's not good for the game is, I think, this constant, oh, no, you can't change baseball. Okay. That's the way you're going to be. Tell me how baseball looks in 2027 with a work stoppage. Tell me what that looks like. There's a lot of changes that baseball needs to undergo. This, on the totem pole, would be pretty low.